Hello my dear sewing friends, it's Elisa here with Thoughtful Creativity, and today I would like for you to venture together with me to the world of sewing darts and more close-fitting garments. And if you think that this is super intimidating, super stressful, it is not. So we're gonna start with drafting a super simple and straightforward pencil skirt block. That's right, it only requires 3 simple measurements, and I'll show you how I do it. Super easy, straightforward as usual. I keep it very, very easy. Even if you don't wear pencil skirts or have no intention to making one whatsoever, do make this pencil skirt block because it will help you understand where the darts go, how to manipulate them, and how to sew something that is really form-fitting. And just watch this video, you'll see what I mean. So let's get started. So the 3 easy measurements that we're going to need to draft this pencil skirt block are: number 1, your waist measurement, number 2, your hip measurement, and number 3, the actual length of the garment. And the length of the garment is going to start at the waist, and then you're going to drop it as low or as short as you would like it to be. So usually I take my pencil skirts at knee length, and then after that you can play around with it whenever you want to really get creative with your pencil skirt block. Now once you have all these 3 measurements taken, go ahead and write them on a piece of paper and put them aside. Now, if you are a member of this channel, which is a paid function, this is another great way how to support the channel and also get some freebies, which include the schematics and instruction sheets for some of my sewing and drafting tutorials and some of the templates that I use as well. So if you're not sure what the memberships are all about, you can always click on the join button below and get exploring. So the first step in the actual drafting is to create a simple rectangle. That's right, just a simple rectangle where one side is going to be the length of your actual garments, easy as that, and the other side, the top side, is going to be half of your widest measurement that we just took. So we want to explore your hip measurement and your waist measurement. Now usually hips are wider than the waist, and that is the example that we're going to explore today. So I want you to take half of your hip measurement and use it as the top part of the rectangle. So let's get that done. So that way now you have 2 halves of your pencil skirt. One is half of the front and the other one is half of the back. Now the front part is going to be cut on the fold, and the back part usually is cut as 2 single pieces, so that way you can do a seam in the middle to accommodate the zipper or to accommodate the slit. For more precision, here's one small additional measurement that I would like for you to take, and that is the distance from your waist to your hips. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your measuring tape and you're going to measure the length between your waist and your hips, and that's what's going to go on your rectangle. Now I would like for you to make a mark at 1/3 of the way on the front pattern and on the back pattern as well. We're going to be working on the left side on the front pattern, on the right side for the back pattern, and that is going to be an approximate placement of your darts. Now since each of the sides of my pattern equals 10 inches, I'm going to make it easy for myself and round it up and take this point at 3.5 inches. Once you have made your toile, you can always manipulate and move the darts for a better fit. Now we're going to do a little bit of math, but it's really simple and straightforward, so don't worry. I want you to take half of your hip measurement, for me that's 20 inches, minus half of your waist measurement, for me that's 16 inches, and that equals 4 inches for me. Now whatever that number is for you, I want you to take it and divide it by 4. And the reason why we're dividing it by 4 is because we have one front dart, one back dart, one side seam on the front, and one side seam on the back. So it's 4 pieces all together that we can use to contour our pencil skirt. You know, this is slightly off topic, but I do feel that I have to touch on that just for a second because you might be one of those people. However, I know the majority of you are just absolutely fabulous. But I do get some people commenting in a quite rude manner underneath my video saying that they A, either hate my voice, or B, that I talk too much during my sewing and drafting videos. Well, first of all, YouTube is a free resource, so you get all of this information for free. Second of all, if you don't like my voice, well, what can I do? And third, I do talk and explain during my sewing and drafting videos because I want to take that fear out of the process for you. I want you to feel confident and inspired and curious about the sewing and drafting process. I want you to see it through my eyes because there's nothing intimidating about it. If I can do it, then I truly believe that you can do it as well. And that's the reason I talk and encourage you and take you along with me during that process and during that journey. So if you don't like that, then I want to remind you that there is a mute button and you can always turn on the subtitles. And if that doesn't fix the problem for you, then it's okay if you go. I think the rest of us will stay and have fun. And if you want to tag along, then you're more than welcome. And if not, then it is what it is. So let's get back to it. First, we're going to contour the side seams on both front and back. Remember that number that you got by dividing everything by 4? And that is the amount by which you're going to decrease each one of the side seams on the front and on the back. We're going to get to the darts in just about a second. Before we do that, one minor step that we need to complete is to curve in the waistline. And if we don't curve it, it's just going to be straight across and it doesn't look as organic as nicely as if you do when you curve it in a little bit. So bring down the waistline by 1 inch on both sides and curve it in just like you see me do on a screen. Now that that is done, let's explore the darts. And it's really important to understand what the dart is there for. So the dart or darts are there to really contour the garment to the shape of your body. And there are some garments that we can make without using any darts whatsoever. And we have explored that on my channel time and time again. But pencil skirt is not one of them. So we need to use darts to really shape the skirt to our body. Now, usually pencil skirt features 2 darts in the front and then 2 darts in the back. Sometimes it features 4 darts in the back. The possibilities are endless. Today we're going to explore 2 darts in the front and 2 darts in the back. First, I'm going to draw up just straight lines from the points that marked our darts. Remember, 1/3 of the waist from the front and the back? That's exactly what I'm talking about. Next, mark the width of each dart, and that is going to be 1 inch for me because that's the number that I got after dividing everything by 4, and you will use the number that you got. Now, usually the front darts are shorter than the back darts, but of course that is always going to depend on your body and on your figure since we all are different. You can always adjust that once you have made your sample garment or your toile. Now, to determine the length of my darts for front and back, I'm going to use thirds again. So for the front, I'm going to take 1/3 of the length for my front dart, and the distance that I'm dividing by 3 is the distance from the new waistline all the way to the hip line. And on the back, I'm going to take 2/3 of that length again from the new back waistline to the hip line. Now let's cut your pattern pieces out, and here's a little trick. If you fold the pattern pieces in half at the side seam and you cut the curve on both the front and the back at the same time, then you won't need to worry about these curves not matching when you sew. Now that your skirt block is complete, pat yourself on the back, but there are 2 last things that we need to do before we can cut it out and make a muslin or a toile out of it. And those 2 things are, number 1, wearable ease, so that way you can actually put the garment on yourself and move in it. And number 2, seam allowance. So for wearable ease, it really depends. Sometimes people add up to 4 inches, sometimes people add up to 2 inches. I add 1/2 inch on each of the side seams, right? So altogether it's going to give me 2 extra inches in all of my measurements. So that is enough for me. For you, that might be a little bit more, just depending also on the fabric and on the type of skirt that you're making from this block. Now let's add your seam allowances, and seam allowances are different than ease allowance. Seam allowance is there to ensure that you have enough space in your project on your fabric to account for the amount of fabric that will be taken away away by the seam that you're going to be making. Now, usually I take 1/4 inch seam allowance. I like mine really slim, really narrow, but it also depends on the project. In this case, I would suggest take 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then once you put the toile or muslin together, put it on yourself. You can always take it away, but you cannot add back to it. It would be really frustrating making 3 or 4 toiles from one pencil skirt block. So I would say go for 1/2 inch seam allowance, because again, then you can manipulate your garment on the dress form or on yourself without being frustrated of adding fabric to it. On my pencil skirt block, I will add 1/2 inch seam allowance on all of the side seams and the top. However, I will not add any 1/2 inch seam allowance on the bottom, because I will need to add 2 inches for the hem of the skirt, so that way it's nice, thick, and heavy, so that way the skirt hangs really well. Then take your practice fabric and cut your pattern. After you have cut your pattern, take a hand sewing needle and loosely baste it together. That way it will be really easy for you to adjust the pattern once you put it on yourself and see what adjustments need to be made. So this is how it looks when it's all put together. Now, this is not my actual dress form. This is a phony, so these are not my measurements. And I would love to put that on myself for you to see how it looks. But this is see-through, so you would be able to see my undergarments through. So we're not going to do that right now. But here are a couple of things that I would like for you to know. Once you have this on yourself, it might not fit like a glove right away. And that's okay, because we added wearable ease everywhere, from the hem all the way to the waist. Usually waist is where you would like your pencil skirt to sit really nice and tight. However, remember, do you like to tuck in your shirt into your pencil skirt? You have to factor that in. Do you want some extra room in your waist? So do take these things in consideration. Number 2, when you have this on yourself and you want to make adjustments, you take your pin needles. This is what I do, but be very careful you don't want to hurt yourself, okay? So take your pin needles. Let's say you want this dart to be a little bit lower. So you pin it in place where you would like it to be lower. And then you take a marker, but don't take a marker like a Sharpie, because you don't want to ruin if you have like leggings underneath or anything like that. Take something that you will be able to wash out, like a chalk or heat erasable pen or anything like that. And then you mark the new beginning of a dart. Let's say you want to take in the side seams. You're going to do exactly the same thing. You're making these markings so that way when you take it off, you can actually transfer those markings onto your pattern. So for example, for me, I like my waist to be really, really tight on my pencil skirt. So I would like to take in 1/2 inch on each side, which just happens to be the seam allowance or the wearable ease that I've added. So I can just really fold it in and curve it in and through my side seam. Now here's another thing to remember. If you're using thicker material, you might need to have a little bit more wearable ease, and if you're using lining as well. You want to make sure that you also do the sit test. So go ahead and sit in your skirt to make sure that nothing pops at the side seams and you have plenty of room for your body to expand as you sit down. After you have made your adjustments, take it off and then very neatly undo the seams and copy the markings that you have made on your toile onto your paper pattern, so that way you know where to make adjustments, and that's it. Your pencil skirt block is done. Now, years ago, before we moved, I actually worked in Las Vegas for one of the casinos, and our dress code was business. So I actually made quite a few pencil skirts back in the day, and I still have them. So in one of the future videos, I will show you some really different options, how you can really modify this super simple pencil skirt block into something really unique and fun. So definitely stay tuned for that. Check out these other videos that you see on your screen. Until next time, happy, thoughtful sewing. I'll see you soon. Bye.